What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. We have new Super Bowl champions. Of course, the Los Angeles Rams won the Super Bowl over the Cincinnati Bengals in a game I'm still sort of trying to reconcile. I don't think it was a good game particularly. It was mostly an entertaining game. Definitely a bit more of a defensive struggle with a few big plays mixed in. Definitely some controversy. And I guess, at the end, we did get the opportunity to see both quarterbacks really have a chance to sort of, cement their legacy, if you will. Matthew Stafford had the opportunity to go down the field and score a game-winning touchdown, and then Joe Burrow had the opportunity to have the rebuttal. We all know how that ended. But it was a very disjointed game that had a little bit of everything. You had some real injury issues, right? Odell Beckham going down really felt like it changed the momentum in that game from the Rams to the Bengals. Then you had Matthew Stafford get a little bit banged up, and he seemed to mostly be okay. Then Joe Burrow got hurt, and he did not really seem the same after that. You had, of course, the T. Higgins touchdown, which had the face mask, which we'll get into more in just a moment. You had the botched extra point attempt. Neither team could run the ball particularly well, especially the Rams, and they kept running the ball. I don't think either coach coached well in this game. McVay kept, again, running the ball in really odd spots, and you had some interesting fourth down decisions. At the end of the game, from a Bengals standpoint, I didn't think they did enough to really try to curb Cooper Kupp from being the go-to guy on that final important drive. And then, you're not double teaming Aaron Donald on the most important play of your season on a 4th and 1. The plays before that set up that, how it took so much time off the clock, and then you run on 3rd and 1. Like, just a really bizarre game. And of course, there was controversy from the referees with the Logan Wilson pass interference again, which we'll all get to in more in just a moment. I do ultimately feel like the better team won in this game, although it was close and it definitely ebbed and flowed throughout. This, I know, again, it just was a disjointed game, right? But I do feel like the Rams defense was really the difference maker here. Now, here's why I see it that way. The Bengals really only had 2 drives all game, and it was on their 3rd and 4th drive of the game. On their 3rd drive, they had the 6-play, 59-yard drive for a field goal, and on their 4th drive, they had the 12-play, 75-yard drive for the touchdown, and that kind of got them back in the game. If you remember, the Rams had a pretty good lead up until that point when they went drive for the field goal, drive for the touchdown. And then their only other, big drive, if you will, wasn't a drive at all. It was the 1-play, 75-yard touchdown to T. Higgins, which was super controversial due to what should have been offensive pass interference. Again, more on that in a moment. And then they had the field goal that took place after the Matthew Stafford interception when they got great field position. But my argument would be you had those 2 drives early in the game, which led to 10 points. You had a field goal that the defense basically generated for you, and a 75-yard, rather fluke touchdown that really shouldn't have counted. That it just wasn't enough offense generated by the Bengals. And here's their drive breakdown. And I want to go into this in greater detail, which is why I'm really sort of crowning this Rams defense as the difference maker in this game. You started off with a 4-play, 9-yard drive with a turnover on downs. Great start for the Rams defense. Then 3 plays, 6-yard punt. Then those 2 aforementioned field goal and touchdown drives that I mentioned to get them up to 10 points. Then 5 plays, 7 yards punt. 1 play, -1 yard going into halftime, so the kneel down. All right, you had the 1-play, 75-yarder for the touchdown. And then here was the rest of the game for the Bengals. 8 plays, 11 yards, field goal following the interception, but they only went 11 yards in 8 plays. 3 plays, -3 yards, punt. 3 plays, 5 yards, punt. 5 plays, -2 yards, punt. 7 plays, 24 yards, punt. 5 plays, 26 yards, turnover on downs. I mean, that last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drives of the game. What is it, 8, 11, 14, 19, 26, 31 plays where they're getting, 11, 8, 13, 11, 35, 61 yards. Sorry for the math on my head there, but just brutal. And again, they go field goal following the interception, and then punt, turnover on downs. A brutal stretch for the Bengals offense to end the game. And you take away Again, the face mask penalty, what should have been the face mask offensive pass interference penalty that went for the 75-yard touchdown. And outside of those two drives, and even taking away the kneel down before halftime, it was not the Bengals offense went 9 drives, 43 plays, so under 5 plays per drive, 87 yards, so about 9 yards per drive, about 2 yards per play, 6 punts, 2 turnovers on downs, and a field goal, which again was all due to the defense and the interception. That is abysmal. So we can talk about all the controversy. We can talk about some of the things that the Rams offense did well. We can talk about some big plays by T. Higgins. Again, controversial a little bit, but in my opinion, this game was ultimately won by the Rams defense. And when it came down to that final Joe Burrow drive at the end, the Rams defense came up huge again. Aaron Donald came up huge again. And ultimately, the Rams were able to pick up a Super Bowl win, get their ring, get their championship, and really, help some legacies for some key players, including Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, Eric Weddle, even to an odd, weird extent. Of course, Von Miller. You've got Matthew Stafford and Odell Beckham and Cooper Kupp and Andrew Whitworth and so on and so forth. Like some players who really could have used a Super Bowl ring to add to their legacy. And those guys got that. But to me, Rams defense was really the key in this one and really holding the Bengals in check for a vast majority of the game. For me, the drive that changed the game and the careers of all those players that I just mentioned was that final drive for the Rams. Game on the line, season on the line, Super Bowl on the line, everything, right? You worked so hard to get to this point, and the Rams and Matthew Stafford are able to go 15 plays, 79 yards, and a touchdown to take a 23-20 lead. And when you hear, announcers or coaches talk about players, not plays, that's what that drive was about. That drive was about Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. We're going to go out, and it's going to be those two that are going to win us the game. It's not going to be Van Jefferson. Odell Beckham's out. You don't have Tyler Higbee. You can't run the ball at all. You don't really have a receiving threat out of the backfield. This is going to be Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. And that's exactly what it was. And this is a very controversial drive as well. And I think the thing that's so disappointing about this is they really called a clean game, meaning they didn't call much at all throughout the entirety of the game. And then you had that really big, brutal Logan Wilson pass interference play, which should have led to a 4th down and 8 or 4th and goal from the 8. And I think I'll go into penalties now because I think this is a major conversation point here. Either way, and I think this is the awful thing for the NFL here, either way, the losing team would have had a major bone to pick, right? If the Rams lose in a close game with that, T. Higgins touchdown, 75-yarder, where it was a clear offensive pass interference, turns the helmet, brings him down, and scores a touchdown on that play. If the Bengals win by a field goal or whatever the case may be, that's going to be a play that the Rams look at forever and say, how do you mess that up? And would rightfully have a bone to pick. On the flip side, if with the Bengals losing and the Rams winning, the Bengals are going to go back forever and say, how can you possibly call a holding on Logan Wilson on that play when you haven't called that all game long? You haven't called plays like that all game long. Is it by the letter of the law, maybe a holding penalty? Maybe a little? Would I ever want to see that called for any team? I don't care if it's the Packers, the Buccaneers, the Cowboys, the Vikings. I just don't want to see that called. I don't care who it is. I don't want to see that called in that situation. As a linebacker covering Cooper Kupp in the open field, getting away in a little bit, maybe a little tug, and I don't know. There's no way, shape, or form with the way that game was called, especially how you didn't call the pass interference of the OPI earlier in the game. And there were a couple other ones, right, where jerseys were tugged clearly and no call was made, and you're calling that one at that point in time. It's just it's a sucky play. It's an awful look. And of course it gives the Rams a 1st down, and then they got another one on another penalty, which was legit in my opinion. But that play, you just want to see the game be decided as much as possible on the field. And I thought they missed a clear call with the T. Higgins penalty. I thought they called a play that wasn't there on the Logan Wilson pass interference, and you just would have loved to see how the game ends up without those two plays. And overall, outside of those two, I thought it was a well officiated game. And I think, honestly, even with the T. Higgins play, I think even if you go down to the wire, if that Logan Wilson penalty isn't there, I think for the most part, you leave that game feeling like, yeah, they missed that Higgins call, maybe in the heat of things where everything's happening fast and it's a bang play. Maybe you can miss that. I think you feel overall pretty decent about how that game's officiated. But that Logan Wilson call at that moment, at that time, with how the game was officiated up until that point, was really, really tough. And I just think, like, these things are always going to get scrutinized in Super Bowl situations, right? Like, there's so much on the line, so much at stake, legacies at stake, a lot of money from a gambling standpoint at stake. Like, everything's just going to get, intensified, and every call is going to get, magnified to the nth degree. I thought there were some things that were maybe nitpicked in this game, but those two plays in particular definitely swung the game in both ways. All that being said, I didn't feel like overall the officials ruined this game or won the game for the other. Now, I wholeheartedly admit that if that Logan Wilson penalty is not called and it's 4th and goal from the 8, I like the Bengals' chances of getting off the field there. But we don't know, right? We don't know if on the T. Higgins play, maybe the very next play, maybe they call offensive pass interference on T. Higgins, and maybe the next play they go for a touchdown. Like, we don't, or maybe they drive down and score a long touchdown. We don't know, right? Maybe there's no defensive holding on Logan Wilson, and then on the next play they convert on 4th and 8 anyway. And maybe the Bengals had, I don't know. It's just like, we have no idea. But what I will say is I wholeheartedly believe that neither of these teams, win or lose, given the situation, can just flat out say the refs cost us the game. I do believe both of these teams had ample opportunities to take this game by the throat and say, this is our Super Bowl. And frankly, neither did. And I think that's when I go back to my initial comment of saying, like, I don't know how I ultimately feel about this game. I don't think either of these two teams played well. I think the Rams defense, again, overall played a really strong game. I thought the Bengals had flashes. I thought there were, again, some flash plays here and there. I didn't leave this game feeling like, wow, this is one of the best football games or best football teams. Like, these two are amazing teams. It felt like these were two okay Super Bowl contenders in a crazy year full of chaos where teams are winning and losing left and right. I don't think that these were the two best teams in the NFL, but that's how the NFL playoffs work. You have to take the path that's given to you and figure out a way to win. And in this case, I thought the Rams overall played some of their best football of the season in the playoffs. They took all these parts, including Matthew Stafford and Odell Beckham and Von Miller, etc., Eric Weddle, and they found a way to put it together and make it work, which isn't always the easiest thing. We have seen these big splash plays from teams in the past. They make these bold moves and they just fall on their face. That was not the case for the Rams, and I think overall the Rams deserve a lot of credit. Now, just to sort of wrap things up, after that touchdown play, I thought that Bengals drive following had a real opportunity to at least go down and tie the game. When you get that first chunk play to Jamar Chase on the sideline, I thought they had a real opportunity, and they, especially getting out of bounds, like, now you're in position. Like, you don't need that much to get into field goal range, especially with Evan McPherson and the way that he's been kicking the ball. And then you have the next play, which is 9-yard completion, and you're feeling pretty good. You just got a big chunk play to Chase. Now you've got a 9-yard completion over the middle, and you've got some momentum. And then everything went to hell, because after that 9-yard completion, you let way too much time tick off the clock, and then just I'm okay with taking the time off the clock a little bit there if you're making sure you get in the right play and have something you can easily execute. But to throw a bomb down the field where you and Jamar Chase are not on the same page was a brutal series of events. To let that amount of time tick off and then throw a deep ball there where there's nobody there, like, you would have been so much better just spiking the ball in that situation, or just, how you don't have a play called and, like, at the line, prior to that is beyond me. Like, how you don't have a quick call, everyone to the line, we're running quick outs, something, right? Just get something, run the play, try to get out of bounds. If it's incomplete, no big deal. You have 2 more downs. And then after that, after all that time wore off the clock, now you run on 3rd and 1 on a very questionable call, because yeah, you have the ability to pick up the first down and maybe get that 1 yard and get a new set of downs. But like, now are you going to use your timeout there? Are you going to get a spike? Like, what's your next plan? I hated that play call. And I just want the ball. Like, you couldn't run all game. You couldn't run all game. Like, just such a brutal play call in that decision. Like, just put the ball in Joe Burrow's hands. Even a banged up Joe Burrow, put the ball in his hands, let him distribute. And that was a brutal call. And then you have to call the timeout, and then on fourth down, come back, and then really screw things up even more by, on the most important play of your season, not double teaming Aaron Donald on that play. You cannot let him go one. I believe it was Quentin Spain on the left side. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in comments, but I believe it was Quentin Spain at left guard. You cannot let Quentin Spain, I don't care who it was. I literally don't care who it was. I don't care if it was Larry Allen in his prime. I don't care if it's Quentin Nelson. I don't care who it is. I do not care. You cannot let Aaron Donald be one-on-one in that situation, especially following a timeout, especially after following a timeout. I can see if things are rushed and you just don't have the ability to, make those checks or whatever, like following a timeout, you're just going to be like, yeah, you know what? Aaron Donald, Quentin Spain, one-on-one, 4th and 1, season, Super Bowl, everything on the line. We feel pretty good about that. Just a brutal series of events for the Bengals, and that's really how the entire second half went for them. It was a poor performance by the Bengals on offense. Never could get anything going. Even with Beckham out and the Rams scuffling and getting an interception off of Stafford, 2 interceptions, but 1 in that second half that set up points, just never got things going. Even after giving a gift on the T. Higgins touchdown, that's going to be one I think that stings for a long time for the Bengals, because they have a really good offense. I know the Rams are really good on defense, and they deserve a ton of credit for how they performed, but the Bengals have to be better there. And again, that's why I go back to my initial point of, I think for all the things that you want to talk about in this Super Bowl, the Rams defense to me earned this Super Bowl. And I think they earned it throughout the playoffs, 49ers, Buccaneers, etc. Wasn't just this last game, but this was another huge example of it. And as far as as far as like MVP of the game, I know there was sort of some back and forth of like, should it be Cooper Kupp or Aaron Donald? I would have been fine with either. I thought both were phenomenal. I think Cooper Kupp was deserving. He picked up that huge, 4th down run. He had the touchdown that got the game, game winning. I think he had 2 touchdowns. Like, he had a really phenomenal game too. You want to give it to Aaron Donald? I would have been totally fine with that as well. And like I said, I thought the defense was, the reason they won. So you could easily say that in that case, it needs to go to Aaron Donald. Fine with that, but no real issue with Cooper Kupp in that game. Yeah, I think that's all I really have to say about the Super Bowl. I think the big thing for me that just stings, right, is that I really feel like following that game even more that the Packers were just a better team than either of those teams. And that stings. And again, that's the way it goes in the NFL. You have to beat the team in front of you. San Francisco wasn't a great matchup in the cold. Green Bay still should have won that game. And I think they should have won against the Rams, and I think they should have won against the Bengals. And I said it at the time when we found out what path it would have been. 49ers at home, Rams at home, Bengals in the Super Bowl. That's a very winnable path. A very, very, very winnable path to becoming Super Bowl champions and bringing another Lombardi back to Green Bay. And they couldn't get the job done. And that's frustrating. However, what I do want to point out here, because there was sort of transitioning here from Super Bowl to Packers, there were some reports that came out. Aaron Rodgers, the Packers are interested in making him the highest paid quarterback, somewhere between 45 and 50 million a year with void years, and really going all in on Aaron Rodgers, building the team around him, borrowing massive assets from the future to build this team this year. The Packers seemingly put out this to both Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport in some capacity that they are ready to go all in with Aaron Rodgers. There's 2 different things to address here. One is why, and 2 is the people that are freaking out and panicking, saying like, how can you possibly do this? Why would you give Aaron Rodgers this much money and things like that? Let's address number 2 first. I get wanting to move on from Aaron Rodgers. I get it from if you're fed up with some of the, I don't know if you want to call it drama or just anything that happened in the last 365 days, Aaron Rodgers related. If you're fed up with that and just ready to move on, I understand. I get it. That's your prerogative, and you're certainly not going to get an argument from me. If your thought process is, listen, the Packers just had this amazing team, back-to-back MVP quarterback Aaron Rodgers, had the opportunity in 3 straight seasons to win in the playoffs and get to the Super Bowl, and you have 2 wins in 3 playoff runs with Aaron Rodgers as quarterback, playing at a very high level with talent all around, and it takes 3 wins at minimum to win a Super Bowl. In any one season, you could only get 2 in 3 seasons. What possibly makes you think that now, with a worse team next year, paying Rodgers more money, that you're possibly going to put a better team together and now make a run in the playoffs to win a Super Bowl? If that's your thought process, I totally understand that, and I get that, and I don't have a massive argument against it. If your thought process is along those same lines, but taking it a step further and just saying, you know what, just from a pure economic standpoint, 1 to 2 years of Aaron Rodgers and this sort of declining team because you're running out of money and resources, or being able to trade him for 3 first-round picks, save salary cap down the road, sort of readjust the money and kind of get back in the green over these next couple years, give Jordan Love an opportunity to succeed. That, to me, economically, seems like a much better path for future and long-term success than 1 to 2 years, maybe with Aaron Rodgers playing at a high level. I totally get that as well. I understand that thought process, and I would not argue against you. And of all those things that I just mentioned, that would probably be the one where I would lean towards. That economically and from a long-term standpoint, I think you could make a strong argument that if you're able to get that mother load, 3 first-round picks, second-round pick, couple players, Jerry Jeudy, someone like that, like, I'm in. I think that you could be much better off doing something like that, especially if then you take those first-round picks, maybe move them back, gain more assets. Like, you'd be surprised at just how many resources you could gain on this team in a very short period of time. So I understand that as well. However, while I understand all of those without question and don't ultimately have like a great argument against any of them, what I will say is to panic and think that like what the Packers are doing potentially with going all in again with Aaron Rodgers and taking that opportunity is just this boneheaded, stupid move. I disagree with that. And here's why I disagree with that. A Packers team with Aaron Rodgers, let's just say they go all in the 2 main pieces that they go back all in with are Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, right? And which I think is a fairly safe assumption. At minimum, and I mean at minimum, you have a potential core roster next year, once a couple guys get healthy, of Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, David Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Jair Alexander, and Eric Stokes. That is a ton of top-tier talent at premium positions. That group of 10, with a few more pieces here and there, is a Super Bowl worthy top 10 of a roster and could compete with anyone in the NFL on any given Sunday, including for a championship. Wholeheartedly believe that. As I've mentioned in the past, Super Bowl teams are built in 2 ways. Your top end talent is just balling out at an insane level, or you just have a really good overall team. Maybe you don't have the superstars, but you have just, you don't have many weaknesses. And and sometimes obviously the best of the best have both, right? Which, I think Green Bay had an opportunity to have both this year. I think they had the high-end players, and I think they had a really sound roster overall. Their special teams let them down. Their offense let them down at the worst time. It happens. It seems to happen a lot, unfortunately, to Green Bay in key situations. But I do believe that the top-end talent that Green Bay possesses is capable of still winning a Super Bowl. And the biggest misconception that everyone has is that you have to have this perfect team to win a Super Bowl. Did you just watch what I watched? The Rams and the Bengals are far from perfect. The Bengals don't have an offensive line, and they were this close to winning a Super Bowl, and that is far from their only deficiency. The Rams legitimately could not run the ball. They didn't have a tight end in this game. Once Beckham went down, they had one wide receiver that was a legitimate threat at any time. Matthew Stafford was still turning the ball over. Now, their defense played great, still gave up some big plays here and there, but there were issues. This is not a perfect Rams football team. Guess what? They are your Super Bowl champions. You don't have to have perfect players at perfect spots at every position. You have to have players playing their best football at the right time, and that's what's avoided Green Bay. So if Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur feel like that top 10 that I just mentioned, Rodgers, Adams, Jones, Dillon, Bakhtiari, Jenkins, Gary, Clark, Alexander Stokes, at minimum. And oh, by the way, there's probably at least like a Preston Smith and Adrian Amos, John Runyon Jr., and probably maybe even a few more names added to that list as well as obviously Darnell Savage, if he can get playing at a high level again. Dean Lowry might be included in that. There's going to be more than that, but that's like at a minimum. Maybe either a Rasul Douglas or a Devondre Campbell. But at minimum, if you've got that group of players, you have the ability to succeed. And so if that's their goal and that's what they want to do, I understand it. And the last thing I'll say about that is this, and the fact that you could make a very strong argument that no matter what they do with Rodgers and trading him and getting picks, that the best opportunity that Green Bay would have to win the Super Bowl in the next decade is by putting this team back together and trying to win a Super Bowl with the roster the way that it sort of is right now. I think you can make a strong argument that way because there's no guarantee that Love or any other quarterback that you get back to replace Aaron Rodgers over the next decade, maybe even more, will ever be able to get you back to a Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl. You still have Aaron Rodgers, and I know the consistent pain of not coming up big in the playoffs is real, and it's a legitimate concern, and it's something that they have to overcome. But I don't think that this is a be-all, end-all of just like it's doom and gloom if Rodgers is back and they're paying him $50 million, and I don't see it that way. This is a team that will still be clearly NFC North champions and just has to play better when the time is right, which is something that's avoided them. The other thing that I wanted to talk about there is why did this get out? And I know that there was some, suspicion. I think Andrew Brandt and a couple others are like, this is interesting because the Packers are normally a team that really keeps things close to the vest. So how did Schefter and Rappaport on the same day get the same information that the Packers are willing to go all in and make him the highest paid quarterback, etc.? The only point in leaking that information is if you want to make sure that you're the ones that are sort of looking like the good guy. And then that brings the connotation of why would you want to do that? Are you concerned? And it's twofold, right? You're concerned that Rodgers is going to ask out or ask for a trade, and you want to make sure that it's Rodgers that looks like the guy that wants the trade and not the Packers. Or Rodgers is really contemplating retirement, and you really want to get it out there and say, just to everyone and be like, just so everyone knows, we are 1,000,000% committed. If he retires, this is not due to us not giving him the sun, the moon, and the stars. We are willing to make him the highest paid quarterback, run this all back, bring back Devontae Adams, do everything we need to do this again. But it's up to Aaron at this point. So the timing and the fact that Rappaport and Schefter both get this on the same day, and that, again, take it for what it will, but it does seem like Green Bay wanted this out in some capacity. As I've mentioned throughout this, nothing changes for me right now. I still believe Aaron comes back, and I still believe that Green Bay is at face value, that they legitimately want him back. But the leak is a little bit intriguing as to why that's out and who that benefits. And it would seem to benefit Green Bay, especially if Rodgers wants to go in another direction. So I don't think this path is completely cleared yet, and I think we have a lot of things still to go over. But I'm still, as of this point, leaning that Rodgers is back in Green Bay. Last but not least, really quickly, as I wrap things up here, there was a fun little tweet on Twitter on Sunday that said, is Jordan Love the worst draft pick of all time? Which, no. I mean, I know that this was hyperbole, and I know that this doesn't even really need too much discussion because it's just a garbage tweet that doesn't really need that much addressing, right? Anyone with any sort of common sense can come to the easy conclusion that this is not the worst pick of all time. Even if he's a massive bust from here on out, you could argue that he got Aaron Rodgers playing at an MVP level for back-to-back seasons and gave Green Bay an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. That could be argued at minimum. Even if Green Bay wanted to right now, I believe they could get probably at least a third-round pick back for him. There are 4 players from that same draft class who were taken in the first round of that draft who are out of the NFL entirely. Henry Ruggs, Damon Arnett, Isaiah Wilson, Jeff Gladney are out of the NFL completely. That was a draft 2 years ago. 2 years ago, and 4 of them are out of the NFL. There are others that aren't on the same team anymore, CJ Henderson, and there's others that just haven't worked out, Jalen Reagor, and others as well. But the Raiders in that drafted Henry Ruggs and Damon Arnett. They could have had Tristan Wirfs and Justin Jefferson. Isaiah Wilson was a massive bust. Jordan Love's not even the biggest bust in his draft class, and certainly not the biggest bust of the Green Bay Packers, because Tony Mandrich would like a word. Like, it's just the dumbest of all tweets, just the dumbest of all ideas. And the biggest reason why is we have zero idea what Jordan Love is going to become right now. You don't know, I don't know, the Packers don't know, Jordan Love doesn't know, his mom doesn't know, certainly nobody on Twitter knows. We just don't know what Jordan Love's going to become. He could be great, he could be crap. We don't know. It's not leaning great at the moment, and I will readily admit that. And I certainly am not still like, people wanted to reply back to me on Twitter and be like, oh, you're just Packers media defending the pick. I'm not defending the pick. I'm not saying it was a great idea. I'm certainly not saying it's what I would have done in that situation. I can understand it, and I get it, and I respect it. And I will certainly defend it to say it's not the worst draft choice of all time. But yeah, whatever you want to make of it. Dumb hyperbole on Twitter. It's what we should probably come to expect at this point. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Jordan Love, as of this point in time, nor do I think it could even be possible. I don't think if Jordan Love never plays a snap in his career and retires tomorrow, I don't think it is the worst draft pick of all time. I don't even think it's close. So, and we're very far from that. All right, that's going to do it for me today. Thank you for joining me. In my opinion, I know it's not a new league year yet, but to me, the 2022-2023 season starts today. We are going to start getting news fast and furious. Trades are going to start to be announced, even though they can't be consummated until the new league year starts. There's going to be a ton of drama with maybe more retirements, especially on the Rams side. Aaron Donald might retire. Andrew Whitworth probably will retire. Is Sean McVay going to keep coaching? Carson Wentz sounds like he's going to be out on the Colts side of things. Like, this is going to be a drama, fun-filled offseason. Buckle in and make sure you're subscribed to the audio and video podcast if you're not already, because we will cover everything from a Packers standpoint 365 days a year. You never want to miss it. So subscribe, like, comment. I appreciate you all. Thank you for joining me. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.